Hi everybody, my name is Lauren and I am the Omnivorous Bookworm. Today I wanted to talk about some of my least favorite, dare I say, things I hate of character tropes in fantasy. So I feel like a lot of people will agree with me on some of these, but let me know if you don't, if you disagree. That would be really interesting to hear like your reasons. Now, some of these character tropes can still be in really good stories. I think especially older fantasy stories, but it's not going to be something that entices me, or that it's not going to be a part of the book that I'm going to enjoy. Doesn't mean I wouldn't read it or I wouldn't enjoy it. So the first one I have, this one, I don't know what, this always irritates me and it's so common. And you'll see it that I don't mind the chosen one trope at all. I think it can be kind of helpful. But when the chosen one hero or heroine, they just keep saying, but I just want a normal life. I don't want these magical powers. I just want to go to school. And they're usually like 14 years old or something. Like, what 14-year-old would rather go to school than like go on a magical quest? Like, that's just not realistic. Can we stop saying that? Can we just stop doing that? Like, they can be scared, they can be like nervous about what these things mean for them, but nobody wants a normal life. Nobody doesn't want magical powers, like, or whatever the case may be. Nobody wants to find out that they are this long lost, you know, whatever. It's based on the story. But that's just one of those things that I've always just been like, what? No, I don't want to go to high school. Like, even when I was younger, I would think that. Okay, the next one, I think everybody will agree with me on this. And I think this is getting much better in fantasy. I think this is something that fantasy writers are improving on. Is I'm magically perfect at everything. You know, you have this like 13-year-old who's just found out that, they have some type of magical gift or something, and but suddenly like they're the best swordsman in the land, or just everything they do is just so simple. They don't have to memorize spells. They don't have to work. They're just magically great. Oh, and they're magically beautiful, or not magically, but they're just, the most beautiful person and the most perfect person. I mean, that's just not very interesting. I think we all like characters that we can relate to or watch, grow and change. And even if they're really good in one area, make them bad in something else so that we can like enjoy that growth, especially when you're going to have like a really long book and maybe a series of books. So, like, we don't want to follow somebody around I should say, I don't want to follow somebody around who is like magically good at everything, like for 3,000 pages. That's not fun. Okay, and then the next one I have, oh, I don't like this one. So I feel like this is sort of, I said I like the chosen one. I kind of do. It just depends on how it's done. I should say I don't dislike it. It just is more depends on how it's done to me. But I really don't like when they're like secretly rich or royalty. Well, I don't mind that as much, but I hate when that's what solves all their problems. Or like, well, I was poor and you think, you wouldn't want me, but actually I'm part of this rich family. And I just don't feel like that's necessary anymore. I think we need to get past that whole idea of like, somebody's birth is what determines who they are, not their character, not their, abilities to do things. And I think this is getting way better in fantasy. Obviously, there are ways to do all these things and be a little bit subversive or make it a little bit interesting. I'm not talking about that. I'm just talking about when it's like straight. It's like, oh, I've done all these wonderful things. Oh, but I'm actually royalty too. So that just like puts it over the top. Or I'm actually rich, and so now I don't have any problems at all. And I don't know. I don't feel like that's necessary anymore. I don't really like it. Like I said, I mean, it doesn't mean I won't read it. Well, by that point, I've already read the book, right? But if I kind of guess that that might be in a book, or I kind of hear about that, there has to be other things that would make the book interesting, like interesting world building or more interesting magic systems. but it's not gonna be like, oh no, I'm not gonna read that. But it's just, I don't like it. One thing I really, really, really hate in fantasy, and I think everybody will agree with me on this, and I think it's getting better, is when they'll use poor people as just props. So they'll have like this world, and all the characters are usually in the upper class, and then you'll sprinkle in some of these poor characters, but they're not fleshed out, they're not rounded, they're just very caricaturized. Maybe they are the thieves, maybe they're the bad guys. And any story, whether it's fantasy or any genre where like poor people are just maligned, or that somehow they lack character, or they're not fully formed people, and so we're not gonna worry about them, I just don't like that. I don't enjoy it. It's just not for me. Like, I would much rather have a story from the perspective of, the poor people. Yeah, you see this a lot in I feel like maybe you see this even more in historical fiction than you do in fantasy. So maybe I'm being too tough on fantasy. But I think fantasy is getting much better. Fantasy is evolving so much. So I feel like a lot of these people agree with me, and new writers are changing. So that's great. The last one I have is a heroine who is headstrong, but she's stupid. And she is able to beat men in unrealistic ways. So I love I love heroines who are, know their mind, who are very like um well formed, well developed, they're outspoken. I love all of that. But like, don't be stupid. Like, I hate it when like she's like, "No, I'm going out there by myself." And you're just like, "No, don't do that." Like, go with a group. You can't you can't do that. Or when you have a heroine who, like, even though she's a woman and she's going against some guy and they're both been training, or maybe he's been training more than her, somehow she's like physically superior to him, unless there's a magical reason or some other, like, a believable reason. It's just not realistic. I mean, the woman can be smart. The woman can, maybe if she uses her brain to, like, defeat somebody, I think that's great. But if she's just going to use her, like, muscles and, like, I don't know. It's just not realistic. The average woman is not going to be stronger than the average man. So, again, if they give me a reason why, but I hate that sort of trope, or that when that happens, and then plus she's like, for some reason, she's like hardly wearing any clothes while she's doing it or something. I don't like that. But again, I think it's getting better in fantasy. I think, you know, writers are getting more sophisticated across all genres, and so we're seeing less of that, thankfully. Seeing more interesting characters overall. So those are my character tropes that I do not like to see in fantasy. What are some of yours? Do you agree with any of mine? Do you disagree with them? Let me know. These are just my personal opinions. Not every book is for every person. So if you like something different, that's excellent. So I will see you next time. Bye bye.